Have you ever looked into the eyes of something so broken, you saw your own reflection staring back? Sometimes the things we save end up saving us, but the price of that salvation can cost everything. Before we dive into the story, click the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more heartwarming stories tomorrow. Also, leave a comment below telling us where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now let's continue with the story. The auction yard in Redemption Springs, Montana smelled like manure, sweat, and desperation. Thomas Crawford stood with his arms crossed, watching men bid on horses they'd work into the ground before winter came. He wasn't here for entertainment. His ranch needed another workhorse, something strong enough to pull timber from the high country before the first snow buried the passes. "Next up, we got this mare here," the auctioneer announced, his voice lacking its usual enthusiasm. "Chestnut, about 7 years old." The horse that stumbled into the ring made Thomas's stomach turn. Ribs pressed against her hide like piano keys. Scars crisscrossed her flanks in patterns that could only come from a whip. Her coat was matted with mud and neglect, and when the handler yanked her rope, she reared back with wild, terrified eyes. "She's got spirit," someone joked. The crowd laughed. Thomas didn't laugh. He saw the trembling in her legs, the way she pulled against the rope not with defiance but with pure panic. This wasn't spirit. This was trauma. "We'll start the bidding at $20, the auctioneer said. Silence. 15? More silence. Men turned away, already eyeing the next animal. $10, gentlemen. That's practically free." A rancher in a black hat finally raised his hand. $5 for dog meat." The auctioneer sighed. $5 going once. Thomas felt a tug on his sleeve. His 8-year-old daughter Emma looked up at him with her mother's green eyes. "Papa, that horse is scared." Going twice. Thomas thought about his wife Sarah, who died 2 years ago bringing Emma into this world. Sarah used to rescue injured birds, nursing them back to health in shoeboxes lined with cotton. She'd believed broken things deserved a second chance. "Sold for $12, Thomas heard himself say. The auctioneer's gavel paused midair. "We have $12 from the gentleman in the back." The rancher in the black hat shrugged and walked away. Nobody else bid. "Sold to Thomas Crawford for $12. As Thomas approached to collect his purchase, the mare's wild eyes locked onto his. Something passed between them in that moment, an understanding between two souls who'd both lost something they could never get back. He didn't know he'd just bought his daughter's future guardian. He didn't know he'd just bought a hero. Thomas named her Sagebrush. The mare arrived at his ranch outside Copper Ridge looking like death on 4 legs. She wouldn't eat, wouldn't drink, just stood in the corner of her stall, trembling whenever anyone came near. "You wasted $12, boss," his ranch hand Miguel said, shaking his head. "That horse is too far gone." Maybe Miguel was right. Thomas had a struggling ranch to run, cattle to feed, and a daughter to raise alone. He didn't have time to rehabilitate a broken animal that might never be useful for anything. But Emma had other plans. The girl started spending every spare moment near Sagebrush's stall. She'd sit in the hay with her mother's old books, reading aloud in that soft voice that reminded Thomas so much of Sarah. She brought apples, carrots, sugar cubes, left them just inside the stall door. Sagebrush ignored them all. "She's scared, Papa," Emma said one evening. Someone hurt her real bad. Thomas had noticed the burn marks, the whip scars that wrapped around Sagebrush's legs, the way she flinched at sudden movements. Whoever owned this horse before had done more than break her spirit. They'd tried to destroy it completely. 3 weeks passed. Thomas focused on ranch work, telling himself he'd give Sagebrush until spring. If she didn't improve by then, he'd have to make a hard choice. They couldn't afford dead weight. One night, Thomas woke to silence. Too much silence. Emma's bed was empty. His heart hammered as he grabbed his rifle and ran to the barn. The stall door stood wide open. Inside, Emma lay curled in the hay, fast asleep, and standing over her, protective as a mother wolf, was Sagebrush. The mare's ears swiveled toward Thomas. For the first time since he'd bought her, she didn't rear back in fear. She just stood there, guarding his daughter like something precious. "Easy, girl," Thomas whispered, lowering the rifle. "I'm not going to hurt you." Sagebrush snorted softly. Then she did something that made Thomas's throat tighten. She lowered her head and gently nuzzled Emma's hair. The girl stirred awake. "Papa, I'm sorry. I just wanted to keep her company. She seemed lonely." Thomas knelt beside his daughter, studying the mare who'd somehow opened her own stall latch. Sagebrush could have run, could have kicked Emma, could have done anything. Instead, She'd chosen to protect her. "It's all right, sweetheart," Thomas said quietly. "I think Sagebrush was keeping you company too." As he carried Emma back to the house, he glanced back at the barn. Sagebrush stood in the doorway watching them go. Her eyes had changed. The wild terror had dimmed, replaced by something Thomas hadn't expected to see. Trust. Maybe broken things could heal after all. Maybe his $12 had bought more than a horse. Maybe it had bought his daughter a friend who understood what it meant to survive pain. He just didn't know yet what that friendship would cost. Spring turned the Montana hills green, and Sagebrush transformed with the season. The mare's ribs disappeared under healthy muscle. Her coat gleamed like copper in the sunlight. But the real change was something deeper. She'd chosen Emma as her person. The mare followed the girl everywhere, nickering softly whenever Emma appeared. She accepted a saddle, but only when Emma was the one putting it on. Thomas tried once, and Sagebrush nearly kicked through the stall wall. "She's got opinions," Miguel laughed. "That horse knows what she wants." What she wanted was Emma. Only Emma. The girl rode Sagebrush through the pine forests and across the meadows, her laughter echoing off the mountains. Thomas watched from the porch, mending a bridle, trying not to think about how much his daughter had changed too. Emma smiled now. Really smiled. For the first time since Sarah died, his little girl seemed whole again. "Papa, look how fast she can run," Emma called out, urging Sagebrush into a gallop across the pasture. Thomas's heart caught in his throat. The mare was fast, powerful, nothing like the broken animal from the auction yard. They slowed near the creek, and Emma slid off to let Sagebrush drink. That's when Thomas saw it. A rattlesnake, coiled in the grass not 3 feet from his daughter. "Emma, don't move," he shouted, already running. But Sagebrush was faster. The mare's head snapped up. She lunged between Emma and the snake, her hooves striking like hammers. Once, twice, 3 times. When she stepped back, the rattlesnake was nothing but pulp in the dirt. Emma stood frozen, her face white as milk. Thomas reached them, breathing hard. He pulled Emma close, then looked at Sagebrush. The mare's nostrils flared, her eyes alert, still scanning for danger. She'd killed that snake without hesitation, without fear. "Good girl," Thomas said, his voice shaking. "Good girl, Sagebrush." That night he gave the mare an extra portion of oats and brushed her coat until it shined. Emma sat on an overturned bucket, telling Sagebrush about the adventure like the mare was her best friend. "You saved me today," Emma whispered, wrapping her arms around Sagebrush's neck. "You're the bravest horse in the whole world." Thomas watched them together and felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't just a horse anymore. Sagebrush had become part of their family. She'd gone from a charity case to a guardian angel in a few short months. His ranch hands noticed too. They treated Sagebrush with new respect, though old Pete still muttered warnings. "Abused animals can snap," he said one evening. "You can't ever fully trust them. That wildness stays deep down." Thomas disagreed. He'd seen Sagebrush's gentleness with Emma, her intelligence, her fierce loyalty, but Pete's words stuck in his mind like burrs. Because across the territory, in a saloon in Billings, a man with cold eyes heard a rumor about a chestnut mare that had been sold at auction in Redemption Springs. A mare he'd once owned, a mare he'd never forget. And Silas Blackwood always collected his debts. The stranger rode into Copper Ridge on a Tuesday, flanked by 2 men who looked like trouble wore human skin. Thomas was loading supplies into his wagon when he noticed them. The lead rider sat tall in his saddle, dressed in black, his face sharp as a hatchet. Emma tugged his sleeve. "Papa, I want to show you something Sagebrush learned." "In a minute, sweetheart." Something about these men made Thomas's instincts scream. The way they moved through town like wolves scouting prey. The way people stepped aside without being asked. Then the man in black saw Sagebrush tied to the hitching post. He went completely still, his face drained of color, then flushed red with something that looked like rage mixed with disbelief. He dismounted and walked straight toward the mare. Sagebrush's reaction was instant. She reared back against the rope, eyes rolling white with terror. A sound came from her throat Thomas had never heard before. Pure, animal fear. "Well, I'll be damned," the man said softly. "Storm Dancer, after all this time." Thomas stepped between him and the horse. "Her name's Sagebrush, and she's mine." The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Is that right? See? I used to own this mare, paid good money for her 3 years ago. Then she got stolen from my property. I bought her legal at auction in Redemption Springs, got a bill of sale to prove it. From a thief, most likely." The man extended his hand. Silas Blackwood. I'm what you might call a horse trader. This mare ran off during a storm. Been looking for her ever since. Thomas didn't shake his hand. Behind him, Sagebrush was pulling so hard against the rope she might break her own neck. She seems real happy to see you, Thomas said flatly. Blackwood's smile vanished. I trained that horse using proper methods. She was stubborn, needed correction. Then she turned vicious and ran off before I could finish her education. Thomas looked at the scars on Sagebrush's flanks, the burn marks, the terror in her eyes as she stared at Blackwood. This wasn't training. This was torture. My bill of sale says she's mine. You got a problem with that? Take it up with the law. Oh, I will. Blackwood's voice dropped to something dangerous. But laws move slow in Montana territory, and I'm a patient man. I'll get my property back one way or another. Emma had been silent until now. She's not property, she's family. Blackwood looked at Emma for the first time. His expression made Thomas's blood run cold. Pretty little girl, Blackwood said. Be a shame if something happened while she was playing with my horse. Vicious animals can't be trusted around children. Thomas stepped forward. You threatening my daughter? Just stating facts. Blackwood mounted his horse. You'll be seeing me again, Crawford, real soon. They rode off in a cloud of dust. Thomas turned to Sagebrush. The mare was shaking so badly her legs could barely hold her. Emma wrapped her arms around Sagebrush's neck. It's okay. We won't let him hurt you again. But as Thomas drove them home, he kept checking the road behind them. Blackwood's eyes had held a promise. This wasn't over. The trouble started small. A cut fence here, cattle scattered across 2 properties there, then the barn fire. Thomas smelled smoke at 3 in the morning and ran outside to find flames licking up the side of the hay barn. Miguel and the other hands formed a bucket line from the well. They saved most of the structure, but 20 bales of winter hay turned to ash. Could have been a lantern, Miguel said, though his eyes said otherwise. Could have been an accident. Thomas found boot prints in the mud, fresh ones, leading away from the barn toward the ridge where someone could watch the ranch unseen. He rode into town and found Sheriff Garrett drinking coffee at the saloon. Blackwood's been watching my property, Thomas said. He's trying to scare me into giving up that mare. Garrett sighed. You got proof? Because Blackwood's been seen in town every night this week playing cards. Got witnesses who'll swear to it. Then he's got men doing his dirty work. Bring me evidence and I'll arrest them. But I can't jail a man for standing on public land looking at scenery. The sheriff leaned forward. I got bigger problems, Crawford. Railroad companies trying to push through Harrison Valley. Half the ranchers are ready to start shooting. Your fence troubles don't compare. Thomas left furious. That night, he kept Emma close to the house and told his men to take shifts watching, but ranch work didn't stop for fear. Cattle needed tending. Fences needed mending. He couldn't guard his daughter every second. Sagebrush sensed the danger before any of them. She refused to leave her stall, pacing and snorting at shadows. Her ears swiveled constantly, tracking sounds humans couldn't hear. She's scared, Emma said, brushing the mare's mane. She knows he's coming. Thomas wanted to tell her she was wrong, that Blackwood was just a bully who'd moved on, but he'd learned to trust Sagebrush's instincts. The psychological warfare continued. Emma's favorite doll appeared in the pasture, torn apart. A rope noose hung from the oak tree where Emma liked to read. Messages carved into fence posts with a knife. What's mine stays mine. Thomas sent word to his sister in Helena, asking if Emma could stay with her until this blew over. Emma refused. I won't leave Sagebrush alone with that monster nearby, she said, her jaw set stubborn like her mother's used to be. Then for a week, nothing happened. No fires, no threats, no signs of Blackwood anywhere. Thomas saw him in town once, laughing with his men outside the general store. Blackwood tipped his hat like they were friends. Heard you had some trouble at your place, Blackwood said pleasantly. Shame how accidents happen. Thomas's hand moved toward his gun. Miguel grabbed his arm. Not worth it, boss. Not in front of witnesses. That night, Thomas finally let himself relax. Maybe Blackwood had given up. Maybe the silence meant victory. He was wrong. Predators always go quiet before they strike. And Silas Blackwood was patient, calculating, and ready to make his move. The calm wasn't peace. It was the held breath before the storm. Blackwood found Thomas in town 2 weeks later, not in some dark alley, but right on Main Street in broad daylight where everyone could see. I've been thinking about our situation, Blackwood said, leaning against the mercantile wall. I'm a reasonable man, so here's my offer. Sell me that mare for $50. That's 5 times what you paid. Thomas loaded flour sacks into his wagon without looking at him. Not interested. $50 could fix that burned barn of yours, could buy feed for winter, all for a horse you only wanted out of pity. Blackwood's voice stayed friendly, but his eyes were dead. Smart men know when to take a good deal, and smart men know when someone's trying to buy back their guilt. Thomas finally faced him. You tortured that animal. Now you can't stand that she's happy somewhere else. This isn't about the horse. It's about your pride. Something flickered across Blackwood's face. The mask slipped for just a second, and Thomas saw the rage underneath. Let me be clear, Blackwood said quietly. I'm going to take that mare. Whether you're alive to see it happen is entirely up to you. Whether your daughter gets hurt trying to protect an animal is her choice. But make no mistake, Storm Dancer is coming back to me. Thomas's fist connected with Blackwood's jaw before he could think. The man stumbled back, touching his split lip. His 2 companions reached for their guns. You just assaulted me, Blackwood said, smiling now. In front of witnesses. Sheriff Garrett pushed through the gathering crowd. That's enough. Blackwood, get out of here. Crawford, go home. I was just offering to buy his horse, Sheriff, Blackwood said innocently. Man gets violent over a simple business transaction. He threatened my daughter. I said animals are dangerous around children. That's common sense, not a threat. Blackwood wiped blood from his mouth. But I'll file a complaint. Assault's a crime, even in Montana territory. Garrett looked tired. Both of you, leave. Now. Thomas drove home with his hands shaking. Emma had stayed at the ranch with Miguel, thank God. When he arrived, she ran out to meet him. Papa, what happened to your hand? His knuckles were split and bleeding. Nothing, sweetheart, just an accident. That night, Emma asked if she could sleep in the barn with Sagebrush. The mare had been agitated all day, barely eating. Thomas said yes, but he sat up in the kitchen with his rifle across his lap, watching the darkness through the window. Hours passed. His eyes grew heavy. The ranch stayed quiet. Maybe he'd scared Blackwood off with that punch. Maybe the man realized Thomas wouldn't back down without a fight. At dawn, exhausted, Thomas finally let himself sleep. Just for an hour. Just to rest his eyes. He didn't hear Emma wake up and go to the barn alone. Didn't see 3 riders approaching from the ridge as the sun broke over the mountains. Didn't know that while he slept, Blackwood was making his final move. And Sagebrush's ears were already pinned back, listening to hoofbeats in the distance. 3 days passed without incident, then a week, then 2. Blackwood disappeared from Copper Ridge entirely. Travelers said he'd been seen heading toward Wyoming. Others claimed he was in Denver. The ranch hands stopped checking the ridgeline every hour. Maybe he finally gave up, Miguel said. Thomas wanted to believe it. The cattle were fattening up for market. The burned barn was halfway rebuilt. Life was returning to normal, or as normal as it could be without Sarah. Emma's 9th birthday arrived on a Saturday. Thomas baked a lopsided cake using Sarah's old recipe. It tasted awful, but Emma ate 2 pieces and declared it the best cake ever. Her gift was new riding gloves made of soft leather. Can I take Sagebrush out for a long ride? She asked, her eyes bright with hope. Thomas hesitated. The same instinct that had saved him during the war whispered warnings. But Emma's smile reminded him so much of Sarah that his heart overruled his head. Stay on our property, and be back before sunset. Emma squealed and ran to the barn. Thomas watched her saddle Sagebrush with practiced ease. The mare had filled out beautifully. Her coat gleamed like polished copper. She nuzzled Emma's shoulder as the girl tightened the cinch. They rode off toward the pine forest, Emma's laughter floating back on the wind. Thomas smiled despite himself. Maybe Blackwood really had given up. Maybe the nightmare was finally over. That evening, Emma brushed Sagebrush in the barn while Thomas fixed a broken stall door. The golden light of sunset poured through the cracks in the walls. I miss Mama, Emma said suddenly, her voice small. Thomas's hammer paused mid-swing. I talk to her sometimes, Emma continued, running the brush through Sagebrush's mane. I know she can't hear me, but it makes me feel better. I tell her about you, and about Sagebrush, and how we're doing okay even though there's a hole where she used to be. Thomas set down the hammer and knelt beside his daughter. Your mama would be so proud of you, Emma, the way you helped Sagebrush heal, the way you're brave even when you're scared. Sagebrush helped me too, Emma said, leaning against the mare's shoulder. When I'm sad, she just stands there and lets me cry. She understands what it feels like to hurt. Sagebrush lowered her head and gently touched Emma's hair with her nose. The gesture was so tender, so human, that Thomas felt his throat tighten. "I love you, girl," Emma whispered to the mare. "You're my best friend." Thomas finished the repairs while Emma read aloud from one of Sarah's books. The barn smelled like hay and horses and safety. For the first time in months, Thomas felt peace settle over him like a warm blanket. That night, they all slept soundly, Emma in her bed, Thomas in his, Sagebrush in her stall. None of them heard the horses approaching in the darkness before dawn. None of them knew that Blackwood had been waiting for exactly this moment of vulnerability. But at 4 in the morning, Sagebrush's eyes snapped open, her ears pricked forward, catching sounds that didn't belong to the night. Thomas woke to the sound of hoofbeats. His eyes snapped open. Dawn light barely touched the horizon. He grabbed his rifle and ran to Emma's room. Empty. His heart stopped. He bolted for the barn, boots pounding dirt, breath coming in gasps. Through the open barn door he saw them, 3 horses tied outside, Blackwood and his men inside, and Emma backed into Sagebrush's stall, her face white with terror. "There's my girl," Blackwood said softly, approaching the stall with a rope in his hands. "Been a long time," stormed Dancer. Sagebrush stood between him and Emma. Every muscle in the mare's body was coiled tight, ready to explode, her ears pinned flat against her skull. A sound rumbled from her chest that made the hair on Thomas's neck stand up. "Easy now," Blackwood cooed. "You remember what happens when you disobey." He raised his hand. Sagebrush flinched, and in that flinch, Thomas saw every beating, every burn, every moment of torture this man had inflicted. "Leave her alone!" Emma screamed. Blackwood's eyes shifted to her. "You must be the little girl. Your daddy should have taught you not to play with other people's property." He reached for Emma. Sagebrush exploded. The mare reared up, hooves flashing like weapons. She struck at Blackwood with a fury Thomas had never witnessed. Not fear, not panic, pure protective rage. Blackwood stumbled backward, barely avoiding her hooves. "Shoot it!" he yelled to his men. "Too close to the girl!" one shouted back. Sagebrush lunged forward, teeth bared, driving Blackwood further from Emma. She was magnificent and terrifying. This wasn't the broken animal from the auction. This was a mother defending her child. Blackwood's face twisted with rage. He drew his pistol. "Always were too stubborn for your own good." The gunshot cracked through the barn like thunder. Sagebrush screamed, a sound that would haunt Thomas for the rest of his life. The mare staggered, blood blooming across her chest, but she didn't fall. She stayed on her feet, still blocking Emma, still protecting her. "No!" Emma's scream tore through the air. Thomas was already moving. He hit Blackwood like a freight train, and they crashed to the ground. The pistol skittered across the dirt. Blackwood's fist connected with Thomas's jaw, but Thomas barely felt it. All he could see was Sagebrush bleeding, Emma crying, and this monster who'd brought hell to his family. They rolled in the dirt, throwing punches, grappling for control. Blackwood grabbed for a knife on his belt. Thomas caught his wrist, slammed it against a post until the knife fell. Behind them, Sagebrush made a sound like choking. Blood poured from her wound, but she still wouldn't fall. Still wouldn't leave Emma vulnerable. "Miguel!" Thomas roared. "Get the sheriff!" Footsteps thundered outside. The ranch hands had finally heard the commotion. Blackwood's men ran for their horses. Sheriff Garrett arrived with deputies, guns drawn. They pulled Thomas off Blackwood, slapped irons on all 3 intruders. But Thomas barely noticed. He was staring at Sagebrush, who was swaying now, her legs shaking. Emma had her arms around the mare's neck, sobbing. "Please don't die," Emma whispered. "Please, please don't die." The veterinarian arrived 30 minutes later. 30 minutes that felt like 30 years. Sagebrush was on her side now, breathing in shallow gasps. Blood pooled beneath her, turning the hay dark. Emma lay beside her, one hand on the mare's neck, whispering things Thomas couldn't hear. Doc Harrison knelt and examined the wound. His face said everything. "The bullet hit her lung," he said quietly. "Even if I could get it out, the damage is too severe. I'm sorry, Thomas." "There has to be something," Thomas said, his voice breaking. "I can make her comfortable. That's all I can do." Emma looked up, tears streaming down her face. "She saved me, Papa. He was going to take me. She knew. She knew, and she didn't run away." Thomas knelt beside his daughter and the dying horse. He put his hand on Sagebrush's shoulder, feeling the labored rise and fall of her breathing. I know, sweetheart. She's the bravest creature I've ever known. Sagebrush's eye found Emma. Even now, in pain, dying, the mare's focus was on the girl she'd chosen to protect. She tried to lift her head, managed a few inches, then let it fall back. It's okay, Emma sobbed. You can rest now. You don't have to fight anymore. Doc Harrison prepared a needle. This will stop her pain. She'll just go to sleep. Wait, Emma said. She pressed her forehead against Sagebrush's neck. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for teaching me about being brave. Thank you for loving me even though people hurt you. I'll never forget you. Never. Thomas's vision blurred with tears. He'd seen death before. War had shown him plenty. But this felt different. This was watching something pure and good leave the world. You gave her a good life, he whispered to Sagebrush. You gave us both a second chance. That $12 was the best money I ever spent. Sagebrush made a soft sound, almost like a sigh. Her eye closed slowly, then opened again, looking at Emma one last time. Doc Harrison administered the medicine. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Sagebrush's breathing slowed. Her body relaxed, the pain leaving her muscles. The fear that had lived in her eyes since the day Thomas bought her finally disappeared. Emma felt the exact moment the mare's heart stopped. She let out a wail that came from somewhere deep in her soul. Thomas pulled her close, and they cried together in the blood-soaked hay. Sheriff Garrett stood in the barn, doorway, hat in hand. Blackwood and his men are in custody. Attempted kidnapping, attempted murder, trespassing. They'll hang for this. Thomas didn't care. Justice wouldn't bring Sagebrush back, wouldn't erase the image of her standing on shaking legs, bleeding, still protecting Emma even as life drained away. She died for me, Emma whispered. She died because she loved me. Yes, Thomas said, holding his daughter tight. That's exactly what she did. Outside, the sun rose over Montana, indifferent to heroes and the prices they pay. 3 months passed like winter rain, slow and gray. Thomas and Emma buried Sagebrush on the hill overlooking the ranch, beneath an old cottonwood where the mare used to graze. Emma carved the headstone herself, her small hands working the chisel with determination that reminded Thomas of Sarah. Sagebrush, she chose love over fear. Every week, Emma climbed that hill with wildflowers. Sometimes Thomas went with her. Sometimes she went alone, talking to the grave like Sagebrush could still hear. Blackwood and his men hanged in Billings on a Tuesday. Thomas didn't attend. He had no interest in watching men die, even monsters. Emma asked if that made Sagebrush's death mean something. It means people saw what she did, Thomas said. It means her courage mattered. But the real answer came on a cold October morning. A rancher from Silver Creek rode up leading a young filly on a rope. The horse was thin, covered in scars, her eyes wild with the same terror Thomas remembered from another auction, another broken animal. Heard about what happened, the rancher said. Heard your girl had a way with damaged horses. This one's headed for the glue factory unless someone can fix her. Figured I'd offer her to you first. Emma stood on the porch, staring at the filly. For a long moment she said nothing. I can't replace Sagebrush, she finally whispered. No, Thomas agreed. You can't. But you can give another horse what Sagebrush gave you. A second chance. Emma walked slowly down the steps. The filly flinched away, pulling against the rope. Emma stopped, giving her space. It's okay, Emma said softly. I know you're scared. I know people hurt you and you don't trust anyone anymore. But you're safe here, I promise. The filly's ears swiveled forward, listening. My best friend taught me something, Emma continued, tears running down her face. She taught me that broken things can heal, that love is stronger than fear, that protecting someone you care about is worth any price. She took another step. The filly didn't bolt. I can't bring her back, Emma said, but I can honor what she taught me. I can help you the way she helped me. Thomas watched his daughter extend her hand, palm open, patient as sunrise. The filly stretched her neck forward, nostrils flaring, deciding whether to trust. When the filly's nose touched Emma's palm, something inside Thomas finally healed. Sagebrush's death hadn't been meaningless. She'd shown them both how to transform pain into purpose. grief into grace. Emma looked back at him, her mother's strength shining in her eyes. "Can we keep her, Papa?" Thomas smiled through tears. "Yeah, sweetheart, we can keep her." On the hill, wind moved through the grass around Sagebrush's grave. If horses had ghosts, maybe she was watching. Maybe she understood that her legacy wasn't death, but the courage to love again after being broken. Emma led the filly toward the barn, speaking in the same gentle voice Sagebrush had responded to. The same voice that had healed one broken mare and would heal another. Some debts can only be repaid by passing forward what you've been given. Sagebrush had given them everything. Now it was their turn to give that gift to others. The circle remained unbroken. If this story touched your heart, click the like button and subscribe to the channel for more incredible true stories that remind us why love and courage matter. Tomorrow we have another amazing tale that will leave you speechless. Don't miss it.